Morning. Lot to cover, man. Masters teeing off over in Augusta. And I was telling Brendan that everything's a Gator right now. You know, the chairman, Fred Ridley, Lakeland, Florida alum, talked about the game at the press briefing before yesterday's events. Pretty cool. SEC
Gator Nation
pride.
runs deep. I'm gonna tell you right now. That's when you notice these things. You're like, wow, you're a Gator. You're a Gator. I have met Gators all over the world. I truly have.
Hey, well, it's pretty big school, probably 500,000 living alumni. All right, we got a lot to cover today. We got ULMAD John Hartwell, Rhodes College over at Matt Dean. We're going to talk with Rodney Orr. Rodney's going to try to join us. He couldn't be on Tuesday. He actually got invited to practice. And then Rodney will try to jump in later. But there's a lot to cover today. I want to talk spring practice, talk some basketball, talk about this House settlement and get into it with John and Matt. But take a picture of the QR code with your phone. We're broadcasting simultaneously on 7 channels, X, YouTube, the channel, and we've got a lot to cover, a lot to talk about. Appreciate you joining us today. As always, type in your comments, questions on the side. We'll do our best to address them during the show because full 60-minute press
Why?
is
Because
underway.
we love you.
That's right. We love you, and we
love
love
you.
doing this. And
we
hope
love
everybody had breakfast.
you. No, I don't eat breakfast, Rob.
I just had something like 2 minutes ago.
Okay.
John Hartwell, are you in the halls of Montezuma? Where are you? That's a cool background.
I'm doing today from this morning from the home study. My wife had a handful of honeydews since I was gone for 4 days to San Antonio. So,
Hey, what a place to be, man! And I think we all college basketball. All the talk about NIL, the portal, and everything, all I saw was 4 teams that played their hearts out and some great basketball. And I love what Walter Clayton Jr. said. I'm waiting for somebody in the national media talking too fast that doesn't know him familiar, call him Walter Cronkite, because I keep wanting to say it. But Walter Clayton Jr., Gator Boys, stay hot. Brendan said that's been around a while. I hadn't heard it, but guys, whoever wants to go in here first, what a victory, what a Final Four, what a celebration of basketball. It was the Mardi Gras equivalent.
yeah, it really was. Like you said, 3 great games. I took 2 donors with me, neither of which had been to a Final Four before. And I said, hey, you got to see the mountaintop there because it was as good as it gets. Drama, it wasn't always pretty all the time, but they were 3 wars in those games. And I think the biggest irony of the whole championship game or the whole Final Four was you get down to those final, 13, 14 seconds, and the team that was known for defensive shutdowns got shut down. And, Houston, everybody talked about how tenacious they were on defense. Florida was known more as a high-scoring machine. You can say Houston, it was their fault they didn't get off a shot, but you got to give the Gators credit for defense, down that last 15 seconds. It was a clinic.
Yeah, and Matt, that last play, and we all know, had he touched the ball, the Houston player, it's walking. I mean, it's just a turnover. I'm surprised one of his teammates wasn't over there, but it happened so fast, and it's easy for us to say that, or is it not?
Well, before I go to the last play, I just want to echo what John said. I mean, I didn't realize this probably, Brendan, until after the game, but we talk about Florida's offense so much. I didn't realize they were a top 10 efficiency defense in the country as well, and it really showed in the second half, I thought, when Houston had that 12-point lead. And their physicality and their toughness, they stepped it up to a level that I hadn't seen pretty much all year, to be honest with you. Because a lot of times we're in 96, 85 type games with Florida. They really matched Houston's level of physicality. And to John's point, think about this. Last 3 possessions for Houston, under a minute, I think it was 3 straight turnovers. They didn't get a shot up, guys. And that last play, Both teams did a great job of switching out on ball screens all night. And I think sometimes when you have smaller guards, like LJ Cryer is really, really good, but he's not a 6'5" guard. So a lot of times when you blitz and double the ball screen, if you can't take advantage of it on a reversal and a mismatch in the post, it's going to be quite effective. And I didn't mind the last play. Give Walter Clayton Jr. incredible credit for this. He contested the shot, forced the turnover for one. On a night where it wasn't his offensive night, he still scored 11 points in the second half. And finally, to me, which makes him one of the most complete players in the country, in my mind, he had I think 6 or 7 assists. He did it on the defensive end of the floor. So if I'm an NBA scout watching, believe it or not, in my mind, his stock rises because he's now, to me, more of a complete player on both ends of the floor. Not that he wasn't already, but to do it on that stage in front of everyone when clearly people were expecting to drop 25. And Brendan, I think your dad said this, or maybe it was Franz, Florida's depth showed. When Walter Clayton Jr. was not having his offensive night, other teammates stepped up. And to John's first point, one of the best 3 games in the Final Four. I can't remember, John, 3 better games that we were whispered to. And you know what? The last thing I want to say, one of the biggest choke jobs I've ever seen too. The Duke game against Houston. I mean, I cannot believe it wasn't Duke in the final game of Florida, but credits to Houston, and they never quit. And that's kind of what Florida did to them in the last few minutes of that game.
You know, one other point I was going to add in there when you talk about teamwork, and you guys may have talked about this earlier in the week. Not a single top 100 high school player on the Florida roster, but the job that Todd Golden did, and if you think back to the early season, both the heat he was catching, the allegations, and the guy you got to give credit to as well as Scott Strickland. Scott stuck by him, let the process play out. Brendan can speak to this better than anybody. I mean, there were folks ready to run Scott Strickland out of town, and all of a sudden now he looks like a genius because they got another championship ring. But kudos to the Gators all the way around.
Yeah, I mean, Scott Strickland's deal is obviously he's tied to Billy Napier in some, in public opinion. And that's unfortunate for him. Scott's done a good job with everything. He inherited a lot. And the one thing you got to give, like him or not, you got to give him credit because he stuck by his guys. Yeah. Like they stuck by Billy. He came out at the end of last year or middle of the season last year. He said, after the Miami game, he said, Billy Napier's my guy. And he wrote a letter to the editor saying, this is my guy. I think he's very, very okay with taking the heat, and I think that's what makes a great AD is that he's okay with being, with shielding some of that from it. He's gone on podcasts to talk about it. He has not avoided anything. He's never avoided any of that. So kudos to Scott Strickland. I think that's a great point because I don't think he's getting a lot of credit here, and he absolutely should.
Well, what an athletic director really is an athletic portfolio manager. You got 21 teams, you got 21 stocks, and you got to manage them. I mean, and you're going to get blamed if they make money or don't make money either way. That's a great way to break it down. That's how I see it. And John, you and Matt both know how hard it is to get coaches, the ones that you want. And sometimes it's the 4th or 5th choice. But I also go back to Matt, what you said about Walter Clayton. If I'm an NBA scout, I'm watching how he acts. Does he have a pout face when he's not scoring 25 or 30? Is he spreading the dreary wearies all over the place? We all remember that one, but he doesn't. Walter Clayton, I love him because he is all about the team. He doesn't care about his stats. That's just my take on it. And when John Brady, who took a team to the Final Four, said when the All-American team came out, Walter Clayton, Janai Broome, Mark Sears, he said, I like Sears. I do, but I'd like to see him do more away from the ball. We've all played team sports, and we've all had all we want of the selfish narcissist on the court who doesn't care about anything but his personal stats, and he's always open. That's why they won. And Florida's losing a lot of guys, but that culture's in place, just like it is at other schools. If you got the culture in place, that means you bring in guys that fit. Jay Wright could write a book about what he did at Villanova. First got there, too many 5-stars, and then they flipped the narrative. Let's fit what works at Villanova. I got to ask you, John, about that House settlement. That judge, is she getting cold feet? Because Monday, nothing came out final. I don't want to see 10 or 15 schools just dominate everything. I don't, as a fan, want to see that. But also, athletes should be paid how they pay them. Maybe I don't agree with everybody on that. But what was your interpretation? And then I'll go to you, Matt.
Yeah, it's clear as mud still. I mean, Monday came and went, and here's the thing, and I think there is going to be some further guidance issued here in the next few days. I think the biggest thing that Judge Wolken is wrestling with right now is the immediate implementation of the new roster limits. I mean, again, just to refresh folks' memory, let's talk about football. A lot of people carried on their squad up till now, and we're planning until June 30th, potentially 135, 140 kids, on your squad list. Obviously, that many didn't dress for games unless you go to a bowl game. But and the scholarship limit had been 85. What the House settlement said is, hey, you can go to 105 in scholarships, but that's going to be your squad limit too. And so the byproduct of that we've been seeing over the course of the last 6 months or so, especially following the end of the 24 season, is a lot of those kids, primarily walk-ons, who were being trimmed from rosters. Some schools have hedged it and not trimmed that far down. If you look, saw yesterday where Rich Rod in his first, spring at West Virginia, he let 22 kids know yesterday, hey, you're no longer a part of this squad. So there is some belief that there may, instead of just hard and fast going from a 135, 140 number for some folks that was not defined, there was not a true cap, to saying, hey, you can only have 105 come July 1. There may be some grandfathering in of current players, but that's probably the biggest thing in contention out there. Well, one of two. And the other thing is some of the attorneys brought up, hey, well, what about an 8 or 10-year-old phenom, today, the next Live Dunn or whoever it may be, man, they're going to get left out of this. And I don't really understand that argument. I haven't delved far enough into that, but how do they get left out? Because NIL is going to be available to them, in 8 or 10 years when they matriculate to collegiate level.
I got a question from Silas Marner. Wanted to know, you say the 105 limit. No, we know in the SEC it's an 85 scholarship limit. You're saying they're going to be allowed to give 105 scholarships, but no. So the walk-ons will then be on scholarship. That's going to blow up high school recruiting.
As it stands in the ruling right now, effective July 1.
All right. So you're saying you can go back, because when I was in college, they shrunk it to 85. So from the question from Silas Marner, you can go now to 105 scholarships.
That is correct.
That there's been a lot of question about that. Matt.
Hey, Rob, let's be candid too, because some schools have already done that anyway. In essence, if it's $40,000 all in cost of a scholarship, some schools on those guys 85 through some schools 85 through 125 or 130. They've given all those kids $40,000 in NIL money, which in essence is a full scholarship.
Yeah, I want you to talk about what you're doing with your spring game. at ULM because you don't know what they are. I mean, is there going to be yodeling, weight guessing, dart throwing? I don't know, but everything's changing quickly, but it's still football. Matt?
Well, I'm sorry. I was just going to say really quickly, the portal opens next Tuesday. It's open for 11 days. And I say that's somewhat of a misnomer because the portal, if you cut to the chase, the portal is
always open
every day. But officially, the spring portal opens next Tuesday, and it's open for 11 days. And that's why a lot of people are doing away with the spring game, aren't running true plays, doing a skills competition, things like that. That's a lot. Ours is actually tonight. That's a lot of what it's going to look like. You're not going to see a whole lot of formation. You're not going to see ones going against ones running live plays because you've got people scouting those who have opted to keep a spring game. You've got people from every FBS school in the country watching those things and saying, hey, there are these 6 or 7 guys from ULM who were either there last year or they were, January ads coming from junior college. Man, we've heard good things about them. Let's see if they're worth making a run at, to try to entice them into the spring portal. And that is happening across the country.
And I remember in the early 80s, down on the Gulf Coast, when a developer friend of my dad said, Bob, I really think this area along this little highway, I'm serious, called 30A is going to be really big one day, but we're trying to kind of keep it a secret. How'd that work out? I see where you're going. Yeah. Now, and it's been great, but Matt, along those lines, man, it's getting to be a different world, and maybe it's going to get so crazy we just flip and go back to the way it used to be.
But kind of to John's point with that 85 to 105, people are just going to figure out the system. It's like if they need to give NLI money and the PWOs of the world may look different to you, but it's still managing your best 105 number and those 20 people and how you're going to pay them. Because let's be honest, coaches are doing different types of planning than they've ever done before. To John's point on the spring game, some people are done with it. Some people are going to make it very different. You have other folks. I know that Dion wanted to play someone in a spring game that the NCAA denied, John, and I don't know if we ever want to kind of get into that. Though I do see, like Mike Gundy had a really good point about, hey, let's do Bedlam now. And in a 2-year cycle, we'll split the gate and we'll put in NIL money. So there's going to be some out-of-the-box thinking, I think, going on in the future. And John, I have a question for you. At the end of the day, we can say we got 21, 23 sports, whatever. If football and basketball are not healthy, there's not the trickle-down effect that you naturally see in a really healthy progression of athletic department. I've always believed that. And you got to find a way, and kind of like you did when you were hired, to make football healthier. And now you've made men's basketball healthier. If you can't do that, you're not, going back to even Scott Strickland conversation. This was huge. Another thing I learned, Brendan, and you probably knew this, after this championship, I think Florida is the only athletic program to have 3 football championships and 3 basketball championships. Think about that, guys. That's unbelievable stat.
And then think about how they won the first 2.
Back to back.
Let's talk about that. That was a whole nother deal.
Hey, I was 12 years old when I watched my Iowa Hawkeyes go to the Final Four and lose to Dr. Duncanstein, Darrell Griffith, in 1980, and we haven't stinted in 45 years. And you guys got 3 natties in football and basketball. I'm just telling you, it's an incredible thing. But you got to get football and basketball healthy if you're really going to be successful.
Well, and along that line, that Florida stat is amazing. I think of the all-time 25 winningest teams in college football and men's college basketball, there's only like 6 schools that are in the top 25 of both. More trivia, there's only 6 colleges in America that have a law school, a medical school, and a vet school. University of Missouri. Another one is University of Florida. That's hard to do. And going back to this, Kerry Jones up in Lebanon, Tennessee, If we don't get a handle on the portal, it's going to destroy college sports. I damn sure don't want to see that happen. And John, you got a cool fundraiser tonight. That's what these are going to become, is like family days. Interact with the players and the coaches. I think thank you, Mildred. It's fantastic. And talk about that.
When we made the decision not to play a traditional spring game, moved it to Thursday night, moved it to tonight, we said, hey, what can we do? This is going to be a focal point around football primarily. And back to Matt's point, people have heard this adage forever, but it's absolutely true. Football is the engine that drives the train. If you can't get football healthy, unless you're at a Creighton or a Marquette or someplace like that does not have football, everything else is kind of floundering. With football healthy, all other ships rise, all other sports rise. So what we did is modified spring game tonight. It's only going to last about an hour and a half. We've got a thing for the players and their families afterwards. Tomorrow we've got an NIL benefit golf tournament. And then Saturday night, we're going old school country. We have an NIL country concert. Tracy Lawrence, Paint Me a Birmingham, Rob. So
that'd be awesome.
And all benefits, go to help our players, help NIL. And it's no coincidence, obviously, knowing that the portal opens Tuesday and being able to do some things. We've got guys who've been on regular monthly payments, but we've also got some carrots hanging out there, for guys to say, hey, you're going to get this May 1st, provided you're here. Obviously, the portal is closed after that. And again, we're not doing things any different than a lot of other people are doing, but it's incentivizing student athletes to stay with your program. Because like you said, and like Kerry said, in his question, it is, you're basically a JUCO coach every year because you've got a whole new roster or a significant portion of your roster that's new. And so you got to be player development for coaches has gotten less important. You've got to know what you can plug and play. I would say that chemistry building has gone to a higher level than player development, really, especially at our level, because you're not going to keep kids for 4 years, whether they're moving up or moving down, or you're adding other pieces to the puzzle.
Well, what's going to happen is the analytics, the numbers are going to come out on the percentage of people that just bounce around every semester, how many of them fall flat. And that's how this stuff, everybody, it is the free market. I watched it yesterday in the stock market. It's just what happens. It's people gravitate toward what they think will ultimately work. All right, so let's say something here. Perry Mason, amen. Great to be a Florida Gator. Perry is a citrus farmer down there. Hey, don't sleep on the citrus farmers and the farmers in the state of Florida. That is a big ag state. They got a hell of an ag school at Florida. But let me say this. Go back to Kerry Jones. Great point. Glad they're doing away with the A-Day game. Hugh Freeze has been promoting playing a scrimmage against another school, like an in-state school. Charge a small admission and give the proceeds to charity. Give credit where it's due. And the Auburn Plainsmen in 1980, then Coach Doug Barfield at Auburn said, I wish we could just play Kentucky or Ole Miss. We don't play them every year here at Auburn. Why not do that for a spring game? You'd get 45 or 50,000 people there. Of course, in today's world, you'd fill up your stadium. But I agree with that. Is that possible? Or is that, well, then we're going to show what we got. But you better not lose that connection with your fans, because there are some people that cannot afford to take their family of 5 or 6 to your regular games. And you better connect to them and never, ever forget you are a state university and you belong to the people of that state or that region, whatever. Matt, you want people on your campus as often as you can, I would think.
I think it's a great idea, but I also understand why John's doing what he's doing with his game and the structure. So there are so many dynamics. I even look, John, I think about you guys a lot, and I think about if I was a football or basketball coach there and I had a really talented sophomore and we got him as a first year and all of a sudden he's exploded. I got to make sure during the season at some point I get my number 2 some reps, because my number 2 may be my number 1 next year. And I think there's just been a mentality, the survival fittest. You better be, besides the chemistry portion, which is really incredible, but you better be a developmental program. And I'm guessing, John, some of the chemistry is, if certain guys feel like they're not getting as much payment as their buddies or the star, and I don't know how that works at your level. I don't know if I don't need to know your budget sheet, but I think it's got to be incredibly tough when you have a really star player and a sophomore in a school in your league that's getting a lot of attention, and kids start wondering, what's he getting paid? And what are we going to, if the kid comes back as a junior, they're probably going to say, well, how'd we keep it? I mean, I don't know. I think these questions have never been asked by coaches. And now you have to really dive deep into this and almost operate like a junior college at a 4-year college, knowing you're going to lose your best players every 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, here's a great example. Bryant Vincent was in my office Tuesday afternoon, and we were talking, obviously knowing the end of spring practice is coming, the portal is coming open. And he, and he's one of these guys that he knows about every blade of grass. That's part of what makes him successful.
Yeah, you get that impression quickly.
And he tells me about John Doe, one of our players, that he said, he's always one of the team leaders. He's a rah-rah guy. He's patting people on the butt. He said, hey, he's been quiet the last 2 or 3 days. He said, I noticed that. I called him in, talked to him a little bit, didn't say a whole lot. He called the dad, who is very prevalent in this kid's life. The dad said, I'll get to the bottom of it. And sure enough, as today's business works, it's not the school directly calling, it's these quote agents. And I hold up the quotations because they aren't licensed agents. They're saying they're representing X, Y, or Z school. And there's no regulation on them right now. They're really not in have the kids' best interest, certainly not the institution's best interest at heart. What they have at heart is dollars for themselves. And that's really sad. That's one of the things that we've got to try to get a hold of, whether it's at a state level, federal level, is some type of mandate, just like there are for NFL or NBA players or, college coaches, because that's a real shame. But those things are happening. But again, you think about all the things a coach has to do. You got to be a psychologist that way too, to say, hey, I better try to be proactive and see if I can address this before that transfer button is pushed.
Well, and that you're right. When they're quiet, all of a sudden they go dark. They go silent. They start ghosting your phone calls and your texts. That's when you know it's happening. And I'm going to reference what just happened in this Final Four. You look at Florida and Auburn. I think one of the best stories was Micah Handlockton giving up his redshirt year for the team. I remember saying on this show and on Buddy's show, that cemented that team. Not a single top 100 player on that Florida roster, yet they hoisted the trophy. You give me a team full of kids like Walter Clayton and Micah Handlockton, Dylan Cardwell at Auburn, who stayed, was tearful. I mean, it just loved it. Could have left for other money and whatever. Campus culture coaching. We know the money's involved, but there are lots of folks out there in professional sports that make a ton of money that actually do love where they are. Now, we always see the worst examples, but I like what Bryant Vincent's talking about. He knows every detail. He gets up. Maybe he's OCD. Hell, so am I. But he's paying attention to what he's doing. And look at the cultures where the winning is happening. Again, I don't know Billy Napier, but I started to pick up on something last year. And the few times I've been around him, Brendan's around him a lot, and Buddy and Franz and everybody and Lauren. He's quiet. He's a stoic. Just go study about the Stoics. There's power in silence, okay? Pay attention to that. I think the kids on the Florida team are the canary in the coal mine. They didn't cave when they lost to Miami or A&M last year. And I said in that last 5-game stretch, I said, I bet they win 3 of them, 2 or 3 of them. And they did. And they damn sure, with 7 minutes left, are tied at 20 apiece with Georgia. Lagway gets hurt. The mental part, John, you're right, the psychology. Matt, mental health. That's everything in your program. Pain is temporary. Pride is forever.
Yeah, and schools are investing resources to provide students with, those necessary people that can be a part of their lives when times gets tough. And the reality is mental health is a real thing. It's been magnified since COVID. And we have a lot of student athletes that are in pain, and it doesn't help with the culture we're in now, with people hearing from agents that are not even certified to try to take away your star players. Yeah. And I just think it's really a hard time. Like, I always thought when I was a head coach that part of my job, I joked that I was a therapist, but I got to tell you, if you cannot understand your players, I think old school is great, and I got a lot of old school in me, but you got to have some new school too, and you got to have the ability to understand the dynamics and know what percentage of my players come from maybe 2-parent household, a lot of stability, what percentage does not. As great as it sounds for Florida fans, it's Thursday. You know what they're thinking? Well, it's time for Billy to get us in the playoffs. I mean, it's like we as a society, we can't enjoy things. We're not patient. We're on to the next. And the thing I told my son, when he was part of a Big Ten champion, and we were at the Big Ten championship game together, we're on the field after game. I said, Ty, you got to enjoy the moment, man. You have to enjoy the moment. And, that resonated when we were in the Rose Bowl and we got our butts kicked by a really good Ohio State team. And everyone wants to think it was a disappointing year. Hell no. You were undefeated, Big Ten champions, and #1 in the country for 8+ weeks. That's not a disappointment, my friend. But society makes that judgment for us, and we get that in our head like, oh, I can't believe I lost a big game. Hey, Auburn had an unbelievable year, Rob. Unbelievable year. You take away 2 possessions, they're playing for the national championship. And that's part of the whole mental health thing. There's so much pressure on these guys. I'm telling you. Everybody's got a lot on their plate.
Yeah, and you got to appreciate it. Let me say something real quick, and I know John's got to go. Winter Timber Outdoors, folks, they're growing in the footprint that is the Southeastern Conference. If you hunt, you fish, you live the outdoor life, they're Southern-owned, Southern pride in Athens, Alabama. Big store up there, shotguns, rifles, handguns. They'll outfit you head to toe. Order online, wintertimberoutdoors.com. They're coming to a location near you. Turkey season. Hey, you're sitting out there in your dang turkey boots, your hunting boots, your gear. Get geared up at Winter Timber. John, your closing comments before you've got to go. But as always, love the background there. I didn't know if you were in the Hall of Fame, if you were at the Oak Ridge Institute. You never know where you are.
This is right on cue. Heather just walked through. This is our home office, and
I love
it. Both of you guys know this. Dr. Heather Hartwell, she's way smarter than I am, but teaches in our graduate mental health counseling program, has her PhD from that place down the street from you, Rob, there in Oxford.
Yeah.
But you talk about mental health, and a lot of people talk about the drastic sides of it, which obviously have to be addressed, whether it's suicide or eating disorders or depression, all of those types of things. But success in athletics is about mental mindset as well. And going back to the Gators' success, look how often throughout the NCAA tournament they were down. They were down in the second half. They had to overcome, leads of the opponents, never panicked, always believed in each other. And, that is one of the great beauties of sports across all venues. It's the game of life. I mean,
Yeah.
That's how life is. You're not going to win every game. You're going to get kicked on your butt, and you can either sit down and feel sorry for yourself and continue to lose, or dust yourself off and get back up and go fight the next fight to win.
Well, I mean, John, we don't think about it enough, appreciating what we have, and that's what you just accomplished. Like, Matt, you're right. What Tyler went through, you call him Ty, but your son's on the staff at Oregon, for people that don't know. But that's huge. And John, I wish I would have had time to make it and on those tickets to the Final Four, and always call me anytime. But I can tell you this. It's going to sink into the fans, even if your team didn't win, going to the Final Four. It's like being invited to the White House. It doesn't matter. You're in the Lincoln bedroom spending the night. I mean, it's the Final Four. Appreciate what you have. And we've got a culture that, Doug Dean, I love him. He's like an older brother to me on this show. And he said, Rob, don't be like a lot of these Gen Zers. If you're not cutting down the nets, the season was a waste. Well, go tell that to all the players and the coaches and the people that sacrificed to get there. Coach K went to the Final Four 5 times before he finally won it. He went 13 times in his 42-year career, and he won the national championship 5 times. You're telling me he had 37 crappy seasons? I don't think so. Just God. And maybe we'll get Heather on here one time, because I've talked to her.
She's way smarter than I am, but
very
guys,
cerebral. Thank you.
Got to run. Enjoyed it as always. Great discussion. Hey, follow our Warhawks, ulmwarhawks.com, John_Hartwell on X. As always, a pleasure. Have a great week, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Take care, John.
Hey, never take criticism from someone you wouldn't take advice from. I think that's a witty thing. Yeah. And people forget that. Matt, Rodney Orr is going to try to join us here in a minute. Now, he's normally on Tuesdays with us in the second half of the hour. Tuesday morning, he gets, or actually late Monday night, he says, hey, we just got a text. We're invited to football practice. Not just 15 minutes of stretching and, stuff like that. So he's going to try to join us. Gary Harris had a meeting this morning. He's normally on Thursdays with us. We love Gary. And I'm like, so Rodney's going to try to step in, but you and I and Brendan, at some point, Brendan has a mind like it's amazing, but he understands AI in sports. And we're going to start getting into this on this show, the impact of AI in sports, in writing, and in a lot of things. And it's almost making people wonder, remember the old commercial where they would have Ella Fitzgerald with that voice cracking the glass? Is it live or is it Memorex? We're going to start going back to, is it AI or is this real? And I look at so much stuff that is put out there. Here's Shoney down in Valdosta, Titletown, USA. Isn't perfect the enemy of good? Perry Mason, I had 9-3 last year. Gators went 8-4, could easily won 9. You're right. I picked them 8-4, but to win 8 games. I'm not always right, but I know this much. It's always darkest before dawn. And I remember a pop-up show. Folks, follow GatorBaitMedia.com. Just to give you an example, I heard a guy that thought he knew a lot about Florida on a talk show a couple of days ago, talking about Florida. And someone said, do you think Steve Spurrier even knows the Gators have a basketball team? And he said, probably not. I'm like, talk to Buddy, talk to Brendan. He's friends with Todd Golden. Right. He has him at his restaurant. There's so many cool stories out there in college sports. And you know what? The big networks are getting into the business of trying to cover everything, but you don't really know a lot about much of anything. And Matt, you bring in a perspective that's really cool. Your son's on the staff at Oregon. He was at A&M with Jimbo for 3 or 4 years. He's going to be a coach. He's going to be he's not even 30 yet. Look what he's done. You look at the state of college athletics now. That judge did not make a final ruling on Monday. Everybody out there that I talked to the last couple of days, oh my God, I've lost everything in the market. Really? The market was up yesterday, almost 3,000 points. It's always darkest before dawn. Do you think that $21.5 million is going to mean, though, this is a serious question. Let's say a school has 21 sports. You got to find 21.5 million somewhere. Are we going to cut down to half a dozen men's and women's sports and everything else is club level? Is that where we're going? Because if that's the case, a lot of kids will say that I'm not going to D1 school. I'll go to Rhodes and be in a pre-med program and go to UT Medical School like every other student there that gets in.
So I have some AD friends that are at a higher level than I am, obviously. One of them just left the show, John Hartwell. But I've heard from a lot of people that know a lot more about this than I do, that, Rob, you're exactly right. What's going to happen at the end of the day, they label some of these the Olympic-type sports, okay? They talk Olympic sports. And they're going to be ones that are not revenue-producing that may go to almost like a Division III model. And you're going to have your revenue-producing sports that are going to be, I'm not necessarily thriving with the ones getting most of this payment. I think it's another thing I've heard. At some point, guys, does football break away from all this?
Yes.
I'm talking about, because here's the thing, is as long as it's the Auburn Tigers, Rob, I don't think you truly care when you're there tailgating before that game. If they're playing, if it's the Iron Bowl, I don't think you truly care if it's called the NCAA, the modified XL, whatever you want to call it. You get those people in a stadium with 90,000 plus people, you got a hell of a product. Yeah. So I still think we're going to end up in something that resembles pro sports more than we're already there. It's not amateur athletics anymore. People are getting paid. I mean, that's the bottom line. And you know what's really interesting? You look at Kelvin Sampson, who, Brendan, as happy as I was for you and your father and the Gator Nation, I was just, Kelvin's reaction on the sideline, those last three possessions, it was catonic. It was like, oh my God, I felt bad because you pour your whole life as a coach into 2 minutes of trying to get your team to execute to win a championship, and it's a flip of a coin proposition. And the Gators did it, and they didn't. But you look at that, and I mean, there's just so much that goes into it that the public doesn't know, because all we talk about is I can't believe Cooper Flagg's NI evaluation is $4.8 million. I can't believe it. Well, here's another thing that people don't talk about. Every good team I had that I coached, we had one thing. We had role identification. Yeah. And that's the biggest job that any coach can have, especially in the sport of basketball, is role identification. And that even occurs if I'm a teammate of Walter Clayton and he's making X and I'm making X minus 500,000, whatever the number, guys, whatever the number. And the head coach has got to figure out a way. We go back to John's comments earlier about chemistry. Role identification is chemistry. Can I be happy with 12 minutes a game? Can we have a transparent conversation with my coaching staff on my role, on my future? Those are real conversations that the best do that the best. It's not just about talent, because I'll be honest with you. I mean, Florida did expose Houston, a problem for Houston for years. But when the Gators, who we know as an offensive team, can win a game 65-63, you know what that tells me? They play some D. Those Gator boys play some D.
Yeah.
And that means Todd Golden got his teams to buy in at some time out and say, guys, we got to lock down. We got to change it, because you notice a couple things. The second half, the physicality, there was 4 fouls called in the first half, 23 in the second half. Early on, Florida got a bad draw in the second half. I think they were in the penalty like within 3 or 4 minutes.
Quick,
and then there was
five fouls in the first, I don't know, 30 seconds or something.
And then Houston got 3 fouls, Brendan, in 9 seconds. And it's like it quickly evened out.
Yeah.
What happened there was Houston was not prepared for that side of Florida. They didn't know that side existed. And they dug deep, and they found a way to play like Houston the last 5 minutes. When it was 60-57, I don't know if you remember its possessions, right under the 4-minute mark, Houston kicks the ball to L.J. Cryer. There's about 6 on the shot clock. He's attacking the rim. He's got a wide open look, and he turns it over.
Yeah.
That shot he normally takes and makes, guys. And you know what? That's a 5 or 6 point lead. That game's different. But Florida found a way, man, I just, guys, I didn't know Florida had that part in them to that extent. I knew they could play defense. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, man, that was just exemplary how they played defensively, I think, the last 10 minutes, the basketball.
Well, I just think that, and we're going to bring in Rodney Orr, who just came in here, but I just wanted to comment on what you said, Matt. And I said, it just seemed like, teams get, you could have, I don't know, your own way, whether you're trying to or not. Florida just seemed to wear you down.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what it was. And we talked about it all year. And I think that was, I was intentional. It was intentional that you got 5 bigs that are going to come. If you got 25 fouls to give,
No doubt.
I think when you saw that, it was like you watched them be down 6 to 10 points going into halftime, almost all last 3 games. And then they slowly just keep playing their game. They don't ever feel like they're out of it. But I think that's one of the big differences.
Yeah.
Rodney Orr is on the phone. Rodney, welcome to the program, sir. How are you? Mr. Orr?
Rodney,
if you're there, call us back.
Yeah, right. Well, Rodney's a rare bird. He got to go to a football practice the other day, and I'll tell you a cool thing. Why Florida? You talk about culture, because your stars like a Walter Clayton Jr., who I said should be the MVP of the tournament, and he was named that, which is a big ass deal. Is he didn't have a pout face when he wasn't producing. He was doing other things to help his teammates. And if I'm going to go down in a championship game, I'm going down with the guy that's willing to give up the stats for the good of the team. Because if you can either collectively lose as a bunch of individuals or lose as a team, and that's why you want it. Rodney Orr, we better get you on here. A rare bird, almost a dinosaur. You actually got to attend a college football practice in the SEC Tuesday. I'm trembling asking you questions. What was it like?
Well, I mean, it was the second viewing opportunity we've had this spring here. The media that covers Alabama. And we got about 20 minutes actually. It was pretty good. But I mean, how much can you tell from position drills? I mean, fans want to hear all these great things from these practices, but you can't really draw many conclusions. All you can do is look and say, hey, you know what? On the hoof, they look like they're supposed to look. They look really good physically and, athletically. You watch them move around and so forth. But, you can only tell so much when you watch a quarterback throw the ball against air.
Yeah. And, Rodney, I agree with you on that. And, some things that I try to watch out when we rarely get the same sort of viewing things for Florida is how's practice run, right?
Yeah.
Like I remember at the beginning of last year and I came off watching our first viewing and I said, it seems discombobulated a little bit. There's a lot of static in the attic. I like to see how practices are run. Are they getting from places to place where they're supposed to be? That's really important because you only have a certain amount of time. Did you feel like that for Alabama that DeBoer's really got his, that feeling of knows what he's doing?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's organized, it's fast, it's pretty up tempo. And again, I thought it was last spring, even when they got here, and it was kind of everybody was still learning each other. I thought that they, had a good pace and they seemed to be well organized. And, you watch Nick Saban's practices and that's what you judge it by, because look, that there's probably, he probably did it as well as anyone in terms of, just the preparation with practices and all of that. But yeah, I thought DeBoer, the way the practices, now I will say this, a lot of Alabama fans ask about the music that they were playing at all these practices. And I tell you guys, it was blaring last year, but it's not this year. There's been no music in either of the media viewing periods. Now I'm not saying they don't play some after we're gone a little bit, but I think some of that is kind of stopped. So we don't hear as much of that.
Rodney, with Alabama, you're replacing Nick Saban. That first year, no one's giving you a hall pass, but they kind of are. But you won 9 games, but you lost 4. And you know what the standard is at Alabama. I just think you've got a quarterback, Ty Simpson, who's likely going to be the starter, who's just a better fit for what Kalen DeBoer likes to run. And I think with that, everything else will kind of will fall into place.
Well, I don't know. It's obviously Ty right now is the first guy. He doesn't have a lot of experience. He's only thrown 50 passes in his career.
That's right.
So he's not really experienced. Then you have Austin Mack behind him and Keelan Russell, the true freshman. Yeah, Ty is definitely ahead right now, I would think. I mean, I think, certainly he's getting the first crack at the first team reps. So that tells you something there. He's got to continue to hold on. He had a really good first scrimmage. He threw three touchdown passes, had a fourth one dropped, had no interceptions. This last scrimmage probably wasn't as good statistically. I think he threw one or two touchdowns, and I think he had at least one interception. So it probably statistically wasn't as good. There's some people coming out of the scrimmages, Rob, these Alabama people now. They're really, they scrutinize things very closely. It's been a mixed bag. And you're talking to people who are former players, former coaches, different ones and I'm not saying they're coached here at Alabama necessarily, but what I'm saying is that people that kind of know, should have an idea what they're looking at.
Yeah.
And it's kind of been a mixed bag. Some people are saying, I like what I see from this team, the energy, the intensity they're practicing with, the talent they have, the potential that they have. And then there are some people that I've had a couple of people tell me, you know what? This looks like kind of a 3 or 4 loss team next year. And I'm saying, well, how do you know that? Number one, you don't peak in April. This is
No.
And number two is college football has changed so much. We really don't even know what Auburn has or Georgia necessarily. We know they're going to probably be pretty good, but they're going to have their stuff right now too.
Yes.
So, but anyway, I only say that to say you're asking about the feedback from practices. It's been a little bit of a mixed bag.
Yeah. And that's normal. Matt Dean.
Hey, Rodney, I had a question. I watch a lot of the pre-draft, not necessarily workouts, but some of the reviews on certain players. Question to you is, were you at Pro Day? And I heard Jalen Milroe had a really good day. Is that your takeaway from the Bama Pro Day?
Well,
did you have a chance to witness that?
Actually, I've been to a lot of the pro days. I did not go this year. It's just kind of the same stuff, and they're throwing against air. And again, I know he was going to run fast. But yeah, I mean, as far as Milroe goes, I mean, obviously he's got incredible athletic gifts. But I think anyone that drafts him, the smart thing to do would say, if you're going to draft him, you better be ready to invest a couple of 2 or 3 years with him, just developing. That's just me. I mean, athletically, he might be able to get away with some stuff, but he's got a ways to go in terms of, in just my opinion, of being able to be a winning quarterback in the NFL. He's got a ways to go.
Yeah. And, kind of a Sabanism, to live a life that most people don't, you must be willing to do what most people won't. Saban always had that mentality. You start to see that discipline to where all the players buy all in and they're willing to wait their time. Like we talked about earlier this week, Quinnen Williams out of Winona High School in Birmingham. His 3rd year there as a redshirt sophomore, he started 9 games, was the number 3 pick in the draft. Because to me, when you got a roster full of guys like that, you're an elite program.
Well, I don't know. Listen, I like what you're saying, but I don't know that that's going to exist. I mean, you're going to have some guys like that. And I think maybe you can create a culture to some extent that promotes that. I mean, you got players that are going to kind of buy into that, and maybe they rub off on other players.
Yeah.
And honestly, I will say this, in the transition last year, there was some guys, and Milroe was one of them, that kind of encouraged and did a great job of keeping guys in the fold. And he was one of those guys. But Rob, I tell you, I think those days of stockpiling talent that are going to wait, they're over. That's true. Yeah.
I'm a hopeless romantic for just the tradition, history, and heroes, but I can't help it. But I just think about cases like that. And Matt, jump back in here. Great stuff. We've got Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider on the line with us right now on the Thursday morning show. It's only $48 a year. $48 a year. Amortized that over 365 days. That's very little. I mean, almost just, it's not free, but it's close to it for the best coverage of the Crimson Tide in this world.
I was curious looking ahead to this 25, let's get past media days. Let's get past preseason. What do you think about the Bama schedule next year, Rodney? I mean, I don't know. I haven't had a chance to look at it thoroughly. I know there's some usual suspects, but what are the games home and away in the conference side that really are going to tell the tale of
That's a great question, and I tell you why. And again, I understand last year was the first year for Kalen DeBoer, so you kind of have to, not necessarily get too caught up in it. But here's the thing: Alabama beats Georgia, then loses to Vanderbilt. I'm sitting there watching the LSU game and I'm saying, hey, wait a minute now. This team's turning the corner. And then they go lay an egg at Oklahoma.
Oh,
So I
God.
could sit here and say the schedule, go through each one of them. And we really don't know how any of them are going to be nowadays. But I could go through the schedule and then I could say, but at the same time, I don't know how Alabama's going to respond in those games, because that's the one thing I'm looking for from Kalen DeBoer this year. Is this team going to play with consistency? Are we going to know what to expect, or are we not going to know what to expect? And I think for Kalen DeBoer to be successful at Alabama, his team's going to have to play. And I know this is sounds like you can say it sounds for everybody, but you got to play with consistency. You can't beat Oregon one week and think you're playing some, other Pac-12 team that's not very good. And you don't have to play your best. This is a war. You guys know that.
Yeah.
And so going through the schedule, I mean, I think obviously going through the schedule, I think the Florida State game's big on the road, are opening up. I think it's a really big game. You got Wisconsin coming here. You got Georgia. You got to go to Georgia, and Kirby's tired of losing to Alabama. He's 1-6, So those are all tough games. And I think, Tennessee coming here and, going to Auburn, all of these things, we could go through the schedule. LSU coming here. I think it's going to be a challenge week to week. And like I said, without rambling on, I think, how does Alabama play? Do they play with consistency?
Yeah. And it's the psychology. I mean, I read a great quote. You can't have a new reality with an old mentality. And you've got to be able to get your guys to buy in on what you're doing. And just what you said. And I think about Jalen Milroe. I don't know him. You do. As a fan, I think he frustrated Alabama people, but he's a superb athlete. And he'll mature as he gets older. But, you think about people, Austin Mack, put him in there. Is he even 18? I guess he just turned 18.
He's 18. He's 18 now. He'll be.
All I know is
I think he turns 19 in June.
Yeah, I've been 18 before, and I'm telling you, when you're 18, you're making decisions not like when you are 35 with 4 kids running around the house.
I'll say this, Rob. There's a lot of those 18-year-old kids a lot more mature than I was at 18.
I was going to say, I was very immature at 18. I had 2 older sisters. I don't know if it's the youngest child or whatever, but I think where we're going right now with Alabama, you're right. You beat Georgia. And in the last 10 matchups, Alabama versus Georgia,
9-1.
Alabama is 9-1. And, and it's what I see is the week to week changes. I mean, seismic shifts. You beat Georgia and you can't beat Vanderbilt. And I think the longer Vanderbilt stayed in that game, the more in shock Alabama was. And look, I've lost my cool before. You get mad. The Alabama player at the end of the game, they were mad. You know what? Sorry, but that's a good thing, because if you're okay with losing, it's going to become a habit.
No, that's a good point. I mean, he should have controlled himself a little better, but you're right.
No doubt.
There were some of those guys that were, and that's a great point. I mean, I think mad about losing, Yeah. So hopefully they don't, again, I just think it's going to be interesting. It starts with Florida State, and it starts with Florida State.
Yeah. Is that a logo game, Matt? That Seminole logo is iconic, but I'm going to make a prediction right now. Alabama 49, Florida State 2.
Well, let me tell you something about that prediction. Our buddy Mike Norvell, I think that's a big game for him. Not necessarily to win that football game, but they better be competitive because the season they had last year, after the season they ended the way they did the season before, there's a lot of pressure. And I think that's a big game. I think Alabama wins that game. But for my buddy Mike Norvell's sake, they better be a lot more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big Mike Norvell fan, but he lost that team in the locker room and 31 guys quit, and Georgia beat them 63-7. And there you go. That was toxic. But hey, Rodney, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. I know you're normally on Tuesdays getting a report on the Tide. It's only $48 a year, folks. Also one of the best guys you'll find anywhere. Superman, granddad, father, all the great things. Rodney Orr, take care. Matt Dean, you as well. Possibly today, you want to go to lunch, 11:27? We can go to the cafeteria at Rhodes, or we can go to the waffle shop over at Calvary. I'll call you right after the show. All right. Thank you.
Sounds good, Rob.
Let me say something about sponsors. Landers Ford people, anytime that you go out there on that lot, $500 off for SEC Sidelines audience members. #1 Ford dealership in the Mid-South, and it's an honor to have them as a sponsor. The experience when you go there, you walk in, Poplar, Houston, Levy, where Memphis and Collier will come together. Again, open every day but Sunday. Tell them you want to talk to Brad Bellamy, the GM. He'll start you with the process, getting you hooked up with somebody that can help you. They make the process as painless as possible. Whatever your situation is, they will work with you. They will exhaust every avenue to help you get in a new car, truck, or SUV. And the service department, go check them out. Go meet the head of the service department. Walk around in there. It's the cleanest service department that I've ever seen. Great people. They're invested all over the Mid-South. All of you people from Houston, Collierville, CBHS, Landers Field, Tom Nick Stadium. That's all I got to say. Love them. Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company, right down the street. 50% off sale. All the winter stuff, they're trying to move it out. The spring stuff is in. God almighty. I'm going out there today or tomorrow. Great inventory. The men's and women's boots. A lot of the stuff's been on back order. That I'm trying to get some wild boar boots. It's coming. The polos, the duck heads, the Old South T-shirts, the Devil Dog jeans, Filson, Barber, great looking STS bags, luggage, men's and women's and kids clothing. Hewlett & Dunn, Charles Hall, his wife Laura, can't get any better. J.M. Huffman, Lydia, Raven Carpenter, Squidward, the whole team out there. Great to be around. Hey, for executive producer Brendan Martin, always on cues. This is awesome show. Rodney Orr, Matt Dean, John Hartwell, all of you watching, thank you so much. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and find ways to make the world a better place. Can't do everything. We can all do something. See you tonight.